Welcome to Spirit Level, the podcast that explores spirit, mystery, inspiration, and the ancient arts of divination through the lens of modern living. I'm Fiongal.
And I'm Jamie.
And we're your hosts. In this podcast, we have a mix of guest speakers asking what spirituality means to them, talking heads between Jamie and me, our experiences, what's helped us along our path and what could inspire you, and maybe some meditations along the way. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Fiongal.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, what you been up to? Like I don't know.
Actually, we had a really fun weekend, didn't we?
We had a great weekend.
We were celebrating our first wedding anniversary. Because,
yes.
A bit of background. Fiongal and I got married a year ago, but we didn't just have one wedding, we had three.
Anybody would call us selfish.
Yes. I just say we liked having fun. But yeah, we had three weddings. We had our legal wedding in London. We had a big weekend festival wedding where everyone came. And then we also randomly ended up getting married in Vegas with Elvis. So we decided we would have two wedding anniversaries. So we had our first wedding anniversary last weekend, which was a lot of fun. And we stayed in London, a really lovely hotel called the Other House. And yeah, it was really nice just to kind of step away from home, wasn't it? And leave Fairfax with a friend. That's our dog, by the way, not our child. That's another story, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So welcome back to the next episode of Spirit Level. Without further ado, as promised, last episode we looked at my origin story, for want of a better term. So this time we're going to be diving deep into Jamie's history. Hopefully not too deep. I don't even know what that means. But yes, so you asked me last time, so I'm going to hit it right back at you. Was there a particular point, a particular tipping point in your memory, in your history that you kind of went, now I am a spiritual being?
Oh dear. I have a few moments, I think. All right, let me go back a little. So it's funny, when you were talking to me about your experiences as a child, you jogged my memory on some of the things that used to happen to me. So I'm just going to start with this. So as a child as well, I've always been interested in the other realms. So me and my kind of high school friend, Jenny, my bestie.
Are we in America?
Yeah, just my high school friend. And still a very good friend of mine. We've known each other since we were two. Her and I used to go to the graveyards, or a graveyard near us, and we used to do ouija boards. So
how old were you?
I would have been between 10 and 13, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was before I went away to stage school. I went away to stage school in Liverpool, and it was before that.
That said, they did used to sell pink Ouija boards in Toys R Us.
I know, crazy. Isn't it mental? So I've always been interested in it from that early age. And again, your levitation story, I remember doing that as well. I remember having people round and us levitating. And if my memory serves me right, we had somebody, there was maybe 4 or 5 of us, and we had somebody above our head holding them with just our index finger.
Yeah.
Now, if I've remembered that incorrectly, I don't know, but that is exactly how I remember it. That literally we levitated somebody pretty much. And I remember us saying, well, now let's take one hand away. And they were still up there.
Yeah, no, it does. There's all those Victorian illustrations of people levitating tables and things with one finger. It's not the first time that I've heard that happen.
So that was a good...
I know I don't want to open this portal too much, but did anyone come through on the Ouija board?
I can't remember. Okay. It was so long ago.
Probably for the best, to be fair.
You know what my memory's like.
Oh, it's appalling.
I don't remember anybody specific. I remember a specific time doing the Ouija board at school. So this was another time. And we were in the toilets at school.
Did you just carry it around everywhere with you?
I think, or we used to make it, rip it up from bits of paper and just set it up wherever we were. I don't think we actually had a board. I think that was too fancy. I think we used to just make it. But I remember doing it in the toilets at our secondary school.
Classy.
Again, it's like did this happen or have I elaborated on this? It's really hard to remember.
Well, it's very unlike you to elaborate.
Jenny, let us know if you're listening.
Call
Did
in,
this happen
Jenny.
or am I making this up? But I remember us doing a Ouija board at school, and I remember the energy getting really frantic, and I remember the mirror smashing in the toilet.
What?
Yeah, the mirror smashing. So that would be an occasion that stuck out in my mind.
Oh, well, it would do.
Yeah. And then another time we were doing it, I was a little bit older. I was doing it with a friend of mine. This is when I'd gone away dancing and I was fully in the kind of dancer world. And me and a friend were doing it on a job somewhere. And we had somebody come through that clearly didn't like gays or homosexuals because they kept spelling out die, fag, die. Can you believe that?
Whether that makes it in or not will be remains to be seen.
The things that stick out in my mind are those two things, so I have to say. So that was terrifying. I think that was probably the last time I did a Ouija board.
Yeah,
I realised
that would probably. Yeah.
I realised messing with this stuff probably wasn't a good idea. We need to take more care. So I've had the experiences. I used to have reoccurring dreams as a child as well. So I remember being where my mum lives and where my mum and dad used to live before dad passed is in a croft, and there's a big island in the croft, and I used to have this reoccurring dream that was on the island and I couldn't get across the other side because it was a river of blood going around the island, and the only way I could do it was to dive into the river of blood and come out the other side. And I used to have that a lot.
Gosh. Sounds intense.
Odd, yeah. And looking back now, it's weird. The only thing I can think of is I was going through a real transition in my life then I was at dance college in Coventry. I'd been away. I went away to I would say boarding school, but it wasn't boarding school. I stayed with a very lovely family. And I went to a stage school in Liverpool called Elliot Clark. And I'd gone away and done that, and then decided I wanted to come home. So we decided I'd go to a college near us in Coventry and continue my performing arts course. And it was weird because had I have gone to a college in London, I probably would have been surrounded by a lot more boys in the performing arts. But because I went to this kind of smaller college, I was the only guy at the college and the rest were girls. So in terms of my sexuality and coming out, I think I probably came out quite late because I wasn't really around boys.
How old were you when you came out?
I was 16 when I went to college, and then I probably came out quite quickly once I left college and got on my first job. So 16, 17, 19,
okay,
20.
Yeah, relatively.
But now people come out so much earlier. Now it's so much more accepted to be identifying as queer or gay at the age of 14, right? But back then it wasn't quite the same. So had I gone to this college with lots of boys, perhaps I'd have come out earlier. So I was really battling this. I knew I didn't find girls attractive, but I didn't know there was any other option almost.
Right.
So I have a sense now that this reoccurring dream was really about me being trapped inside of a body or a person that I wasn't comfortable with.
So do you link that dream? It's interesting that you speak particularly about that dream, obviously in part because sounds quite
terrifying.
But was that actually what you would call a kind of spiritual dream or an insightful dream or an intuitive dream?
I think they were starting to come. The dreams were just starting to show. Had I have known back then and been able to interpret them, I suppose I could have taken meaning from them. It's only now in hindsight I'm looking back and seeing what I was going through. I think this was the part of the dream. I definitely felt like I was on my own island.
Because you don't tend to have that intensity of dreams anymore, do you?
No, I go through phases. My dad comes through quite often in dreams.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
And he, particularly after he passed, 10 years ago now, but after he passed, he would come through. And it was always dreams of us as a family unit and really happy dreams. So I go through phases where sometimes I do have quite spiritually awakening dreams where there's a real profoundness to them, and other times not so much.
Sorry to interrupt. I've just reminded of the time that you remember my phone. We were in bed one night and my phone kept going off throughout the night, and you got up, went round and switched my phone off, and you thought something's happened.
Yes.
Something's gone on.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
knew that it was related to my mum's side.
Yes, I did.
And
I
then
had
we
an
woke up in the
intuitive
morning and found that my great aunt had died that evening.
Yeah.
So the amount of times that, it's in that liminal
Yes.
kind of milky state.
And I remember when my auntie passed, I lost my mum's sister when I was quite young, again, probably at college, 16, which was, really awful for the family, really awful for my mum and my grandma to lose, a daughter before she went. And she went quite soon after, actually. But I remember I was very close to Anne, and she is one of my guides for sure. She's with me all the time when I'm doing readings. She's there. She championed me no matter what I did. She supported me in my dance career when, being a boy dancer back then was a little bit more unusual. She supported me through private education. She helped mum with some of the fees and helped buy me books and things that I needed. So we were really close. And she actually it makes me a bit teary because when I think about her, she used to call me the apple of her eye. She never had children of her own. And there was a close bond, so it makes complete sense that she's always around me. But the point I'm getting to is shortly after she passed, there was a moment when I was at home at night when she came to me, and it was the first time I realized there was such thing as spirit, because not that I saw her, but I just knew there was a light in the middle of the night shining at the top of the wardrobe that wasn't coming from anywhere, because there wasn't a light pointing in that direction, but there was this light. And immediately I just knew, again, this inner sense of knowing that was her coming through to say, I'm here.
Wow.
So that was kind of quite early on, about the age of 16. And I've been seeing psychics that I think after we lost Anne was probably a trigger for me starting to see psychics, because I think my mum saw some psychics and I got onto that bandwagon as well and started doing it.
Did your dad ever go and see a psychic?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So I've been seeing medium psychics since I was 16. So it's always been something I've been around, but have dipped in and out of it through various stages of my life. So I suppose from an early age that happened. And then I guess I got into my career as a professional dancer, which took me around the world, traveled a lot. And I suppose I lost touch a little bit with that side of things. Although I was always reading self-help books and, spiritual
The Secret
books. The Secret, all those kind of things. And a good friend of mine, Sarah Jane, I suppose, was a catalyst for all of this, because she was heavily into that work. And again, the College of Psychic Studies was around, and we were going there, visiting there, doing meditations kind of on and off.
So is it fair to say that it was kind of always there in the background and you never really questioned it? It was just something that was just kind of bubbled away?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was something that always played a part in my life, but I didn't really put a
label
on it. Yeah, I think so. And in terms of being psychic, I think when I'm in the flow and I'm talking and it comes from a place of authenticity, I think sometimes these are the moments when you can switch into some other place. So there are times, now I've coached and I teach yoga. And when I'm in my true authentic self, sometimes I feel some of that information isn't coming from me. I feel like it's being fed from a higher place.
And I imagine, because I've had that experience, obviously, both within my psychic readings, but I also remember a time when I was doing my master's that I spoke about on last episode. And I remember my best work. There were two particular projects that I worked on that I would just loved. It was just really heartfelt, but it was no way linked with the ego. That stuff was just all channeled. I was in such a authentic space that I was able to just allow these ideas just to flow through. And I imagine, is that liken for dance with you? Did you kind of get that?
100%. I think it's so funny with dance. It's you learn choreographed movements, but once you've learned it and it goes into your body, then it's how do you express that, right? So you've done the the physical bit of learning it, the mental bit almost of learning it. And then it has to manifest into a performance. And that, in that moment, in that performance, that is where something happens that you can't explain. That's where everything's aligned, where, you know, you have an audience, which always plays a part. Ultimately, you are there to perform, and, you know, there's an element of showing off. It just is. It's a weird thing when you're performing. It is. You like the limelight. You like people watching you. You like giving people what they want to see. You like the applause. And it's in those moments when there's just like, I don't know, you're so, I suppose you're so present. I think that's the thing.
Yes.
When you're truly present and your mind isn't elsewhere.
Totally.
It's like this channel opens for creativity to come in.
Yeah. Because I often say that creativity and psychism are like sisters, or they're two cables within the same fiber optic casing.
Yeah, it's beautifully put.
It's just, best psychic work and best creative work are just completely channels.
Yes.
And it is interesting that you were saying, it's like, yes, we do love the performance, we do love the kind of applause, let's say, but actually the moment you let all of that go is when you're doing your best. Absolutely.
And you don't, when you're in the moment, you don't think about it in the moment. You know, at the end of a performance, you take your bow. There is something exhilarating about that. And of course, you know, touring for years and years and I did lots of TV, film and theatre. And it is interesting. I understand why people in the entertainment world struggle, particularly with addiction, particularly with that, because you are on such a high. You know, maybe that's labeling to a degree, but I think a lot of people are so used to being on highs that when you come down from that, it's a crash, and you have to find some stability in that world. How do you how do you ground again? And that's how it, you know, this work.
It can be the same with fashion as well. In my background, you do a show and there's like the applause, or you do a show and everyone says it's rubbish. And it's that saying, isn't it? You're only as good as your last show. You're only as good as your last performance, and you're only as good as your last reading. Yeah. So it's interesting that throughout all of those three things, it is, in some ways, a reading is a performance. I remember one time somebody said to me during a sitting, it feels like I've just seen a one-man show, but the whole play was about me. And that was the best summation I've ever had of a reading. And it's interesting that we've constantly putting ourselves in this place of not necessarily pressure, but in this place of
having to deliver.
Yeah. So there's something obviously inherent within both of us that feels that. So sorry, I kind of interrupted you there. So you were very, very involved with your dance world, and you were touring, you were saying. Yeah. And your perhaps spiritual kind of side took a bit of a hiatus. Yeah, I definitely did less meditation. You know, it was more about partying, having fun, seeing the world, you know, which I do not regret. It was some of the best times of my life. It's an absolute rite of passage.
Met some of the best people. Some of the people, those people I met at that time are still my best friends now. So it was amazing. But I did let it slip slightly, and that's fine. And I always believe we're always on this journey. And I think that's also something you have to learn to be okay with, that life does take you on a ride and you can't always be a certain way, and it's fine to have these dips.
Well, it's all about balance, right?
Exactly.
You can't be, you know, on the prayer mat 24/7.
No, that's not. We're not that evolved just yet.
Speak for yourself. Yeah. So how did you kind of come back into it? How did you find your way back into more of the spiritual life? I suppose
when I kind of left the dance world, I decided I still wanted to be in my body. That's important for me to be physical in some way. And I've been practicing yoga for a few years already, so it seemed like a natural progression to do my yoga teacher training.
So how old were you when you left dance?
Around 32.
That's quite late.
Yeah.
Relatively late.
Around 30s. And it wasn't really a choice. I went away I went to a travel, again, it's when you travel, I think you just never lose that bug to travel. So I'd done quite a big job in London and made a good amount of money. So instead of putting the deposit onto a house, I decided to blow it traveling for a year. So I went off to see the world yet again by myself with my backpack.
Nothing's changed.
Off I go.
We're still exactly the same.
Always
in
been
my
a bit
marriage
nomadic.
vows, I said we go on at least seven holidays a year. So.
Yeah, I will allow you to take me on 7 holidays a year.
Very hard work.
I was off. So I went off traveling. And I think when I came back, something had just slightly shifted in me. I set up a business called Star of the Party. And I kind of just got into more of that kind of entrepreneurial role. You know, always being self-employed as a dancer, I think really gives you an amazing set of skills to be that. I was a hustler. I always had to hustle, you know. So I found that transition into running my own businesses, something really enjoyable, but also something that I didn't necessarily struggle with. So I set up a company, and I used to do first wedding dances for people, and I also used to train people to dance and then put them into their own show. And I did that for a little while. Then I had a chain of juice bars inside yoga studios and gyms in London. And then after that was the point I decided, okay, I'm going to do my yoga teacher training. I'd been in these yoga studios with the juice bar, and thought I want to explore this more. There's something in yoga that feels very right for me. So I went off to India, did my teacher training, amazing teacher training, and I suppose that was the next kind of switch into kind of spirituality, so to speak. And I had quite a tough time. I was in a relationship at that point that was challenging, and it was a real point for me to have to get quiet. You know, I'd always busied myself. I was always with people. If I wasn't performing or dancing or working, I was out socializing. So being on a teacher training really pulls you into yourself. So you start to have to question things. So that was for me. And now this next step into, okay, who am I? What do I really want? Where do I want to go with my life? So those are the questions I was starting to ask myself. And, you know, we were doing daily meditations, breathwork, yoga. So that was another kind of push into that world. And then came back and started teaching and you know, had a really great few years teaching yoga and loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then just started doing a little bit more meditation, getting into manifestation a little bit more, which I'll talk about in a moment, creating vision boards, and just looking at myself on a deeper level. And then I suppose the next thing that happened is, and like with most spiritual kind of awakenings, there tends to be a catalyst. And often it's illness, right?
Or crisis.
Yeah. Crisis of some sorts. A marriage breaking down, a death of somebody.
Yeah.
In my instance, it was illness.
Yeah.
And I had got quite ill. It's quite a big topic. Let me think where to start. I am HIV positive and have been for quite some years. I took the decision when I got diagnosed to not start the medication straight away. Back then, it was, you know, quite a few years ago. Back then, they didn't necessarily suggest you started the medication straight away. They looked at your so without getting too technical, you have a CD4 count, a number that they look at, and then you have a viral load, another number that they look at. And these two numbers are really important in terms of how the virus is progressing. And at that point, I don't want to misspeak, but I have a feeling that if your CD4 count dropped below 500 is when they would start recommending that you start treatment.
Okay. So what does CD4 represent? Are they the white blood cells, or?
It's almost like your, how your immune system is with it.
Yeah.
So I believe.
Yeah.
And your viral load is the amount of virus in your blood.
Yeah. How many copies?
How many copies of it is in your blood? Yeah. And my CD4 count was always at quite a stable number. So we decided, me and my specialist doctor that I have been seeing for many, many years, who's amazing and he's at the top of it. I'm very lucky to have him as my kind of doctor.
Yeah, you only managed to manifest the number one,
The best.
one of the best doctors in the whole of the country.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
On speed dial.
Yeah, I know. I can text him, which is amazing. So we decided not to go on the meds straight away and just to keep an eye on it. I was very much into holistic health. I've been on this whole yoga journey and I ran juice bars. Everything about me was about well-being, natural well-being. So, I very rarely took a paracetamol. If I could cure it naturally, I'd much rather go down that route. So I decided that's what I was going to do. And I went on a bit of a journey to almost try and heal myself of this virus. Did lots and lots of different therapies, really. It was quite a lot when I think back. And managed to sustain a level of wellness for a while until I got sick. And it happened really quickly. And although the numbers were still showing not too bad, I just took a nosedive very quickly. Couldn't get out of bed. I was having night sweats. And I also noticed I was getting marks, like purple marks on my skin.
Like lesions?
Like lesions, yeah. And I was like, what is this? In the back of my mind, I thought, this isn't good. So I went back to my specialist and had them examined and got diagnosed with something called Kaposi sarcoma. It's a type of cancer. So at the beginning, we were like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's all right. It's on your skin. We can treat it. I started the meds at that point. And by the way, just as anybody that questions going on antiviral medication for HIV, for whatever reason, if they have HIV, please, please, please start the medication. It's so, so important. There are some medications that I think we can manage. There are some that we can manage without, and look at our lifestyle and look at our diet, look at other things and help it. HIV is not one of those things. If you're diagnosed with HIV, start the medication. So I went on it straight away, and actually within a week of starting these meds, I felt so much better. I had to get over a bit of a hurdle. This just shows the power of the mind, because I remember leaving the hospital with I think I was taking 2 tablets at the time. And I don't know why I did this, but I was sat at the train station at Denmark Hill, getting on the train to go home. And I decided just to take the plunge and take that first tablet straight away. So I took the tablet, got on the tube, and then within minutes, I felt like I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
I was sweating.
I've heard that
palpitations.
Medication's quite hardcore initially.
So no, it wasn't the medication.
Oh.
This was not the medication. Huh. This was me having a panic attack, because I had told myself for so long that medication was evil, that medication would be the downfall. Medication would make me more ill. I'd got it into my head that was the case. And actually, without naming names, I had a reading with a very, very, very famous psychic. Very, very, very famous psychic who particularly works within the realms of the medical world, who had told me that I didn't have HIV and it wasn't something to be concerned about. Just do X, Y, and Z. I had Epstein-Barr virus is what I was told. And if I'm honest, it was part of the reason why I didn't start the medication, because I was so mixed with the tunnel vision of medicine is bad, and then somebody who is well renowned in the industry telling me you don't have this virus and you're going to be fine if you do these steps. Coupled those 2 things together was really dangerous.
And this, we'll talk about this in much more depth at another point, but this is unfortunately the downside of this work, of psychic work. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about situations that have not always been easy, or and because it's not governed in any particular way. I've obviously heard that before, but it just makes me so angry every time I hear it. But as you say, well, once you're in it, you're so, I've had clients come and I know that they're so desperate for a particular answer, and the responsibility of how to manage that is enormous. It's really, really difficult. So I imagine for somebody that, okay, yes, they've supported everything that I thought was going on. So great.
This was somebody that you couldn't get a reading with. You had to go in a lottery. You had to go in a lottery and then pay an incredibly inflated price to have a reading. They don't actually do readings, one-to-one readings anymore, I don't think. I'm not surprised.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Spirit Level, brought to you by the Wellness Foundry, bringing spirit to soul. Looking for a trusted and industry-leading place for spiritual wellness? Then the Wellness Foundry is for you. Listed in Time Out and Evening Standard as one of the best wellness hubs in London, they offer one-to-one tarot psychic readings, energy healings, luxury retreats, mystic teachings, and a range of beautiful products to clients all over the world, all with a down-to-earth, accessible, and non-dogmatic approach centered around balancing mind, body, and soul. Use code PODCAST5 at checkout and enjoy 5% off your first booking with us. For more information and bookings, visit the website wellnessfoundry.co.uk or find us on Instagram at Wellness Foundry. Terms and conditions apply.
So I got on the train and I took this tablet, and what happened was I had a panic attack. I had this reaction because I had built it up in my head so much that I did not want to take the medicine. And for the first week after that, every time I took a tablet, I had a panic attack.
Wow.
So it just shows the power of the mind. What happens at the same time is that I actually started to not have the night sweats. I started to feel physically better in my body with what was going on. I was having terrible issues with my stomach. So it was a difficult situation to go through, but I did transition through it. Unfortunately, as well as having the lesions on my body, with further investigation, we found out that I also had lesions in my stomach.
And this is a form of cancer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's cancer.
Yeah.
And I had them on my tonsils. I had them on my genitalia. And I suspect, had I not taken action quite quickly, it would have spread to a lot more places. So I had to go through chemotherapy, which was, again, a really, really difficult decision to make from somebody that just physically felt sick about having to take medication, to then be told I've got to go in and be on this IV and have chemotherapy put through my body every 6 weeks, or however many it was. I think it was every 6 weeks. I ended up for 6 or 7 sessions. Was just so hard. And I challenged the doctors and we talked about it backwards and forwards, whether this was the right decision for me. But she just said to me, "You are too young not to try this and not to do this.
Wow.
You will get sick if you don't do this." And obviously at this point, I told my family, which again was a big decision. I was so twofold. I hadn't told my family I was HIV positive. I'd kept it a secret from many, many people for many years.
That's really hard.
I was so... is the word embarrassed? I don't know, like...
well, there's
ashamed,
so much
I suppose.
stigma, isn't there? There's
Ashamed.
so much stigma. Even now, and even within the gay community, I think sometimes the stories that you've told me, we don't have to go in now, but some people's reactions to that has not always been enlightened, should we say.
No. So it was hard. I had to tell family not only I was HIV positive, but because I hadn't started the medication, I'd got cancer.
Very unwell.
So luckily my family was so supportive. My friends were so supportive. And actually the whole journey was not as bad as I had anticipated. So during that time, I had to find a way to cope, had to find some tools that I could implement on a daily basis to get me through what A, my physical body was going through, but B, what I was going through mentally. There was a period when I got diagnosed with the Kaposi sarcoma over Christmas where there was time off from the hospital. The doctors weren't going in. It was over Christmas. So I didn't get to see a consultant, I think, for about 3 or 4 weeks since I was given the diagnosis. I had no idea really what this meant. I had no idea what the prognosis was, apart from what I'd read on Mr. Google, which was, you're going to die. So for a few weeks, I was really having to contemplate, could this be the end of me? Could this be the end of my journey? And what did that mean? And was there a way I was able to come to terms with that? And I suppose that is when I had to find something to believe in, to use as a tool, but to also just help me through and give me some sort of hope and faith. And it was when I started upping my meditation practice. I would do meditation twice a day. I used visualizations. I used affirmations that I used to put around the house. Positive affirmations. I am well. I am happy. I am healed was one that I remember. I have no cancer.
It's interesting, actually, because we, in Buddhism, one of the meditations, the Metabhavana, is effectively that. It's repeating that affirmation. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from pain and suffering.
Right. Exactly.
And you just repeat that.
And that was something that I just knew it was an important kind of affirmation or mantra to have. So that I used mantras, I used affirmations, I used meditation. My yoga practice was daily. And then I ran as well. And that's another thing. Running was just an amazing tool for me to clear my mind. It's where I had some of my most inspirational moments when I could just think clearly. And again, as I was running, I was using mantras. I remember saying, I am cancer free. I am cancer free. I am cancer free for 30 minutes, running for 30 minutes. So my running became a meditation. My meditation was a meditation. My whole life almost became about me healing.
Sorry to jump in there, but it reminds me a lot of Mandy, who's one of the healers at the Wellness Foundry. So I'm sure she wouldn't mind me kind of sharing this because it's out there in the ether anyway. But her partner was similarly, I think it was stage 4 cancer, and was told by the doctors, okay, take some paracetamol, go home, you've got 3 months left. And again, him visualizing every day about the
tumor shrinking,
surrounding it in a white light, bringing that down. And, within months, he'd managed to kind of cure himself of terminal cancer. So it is really points.
And I did that when I went in for my treatment. It's funny, we used to call, again, because I never want, I just hated using the word chemotherapy. Still, when I say chemotherapy, it's weird. I've slightly gained ownership over the word now. At the time, I couldn't bring myself to say it. I couldn't bring myself to say I was having chemotherapy. It was.
Why so?
I just couldn't believe I had got cancer.
Right.
Couldn't believe it. I'd seen it through in family and other people, but never in a million years did I think I'd get cancer. I don't know why. So I couldn't bring myself to say it. So I decided, I think, and a friend, we came up with the word jungle juice. So I would be going in for my jungle juice. I think a link to me having the juice bars. And I used to green juice every single day. My mum still does and always has done. We lost my dad to cancer 10 years ago, and I tried to get him onto juicing. The Garson therapy is a massive institution for juicing. And I was a little bit naive to think that perhaps that was the answer and that would cure him of his incurable cancer. But I wanted to try it. So
yeah, of course.
We bought a juicer, we got the juicer, we started green juicing. And never forget, my dad, the first time he took a sip of this green juice, he said, I'm not fucking drinking that. It tastes like the earth. And we were like, okay. So Dad didn't have any more, but me and my mum got into it. And my mum makes a green juice every single day and has done for 10 years. And I'm convinced it's what holds her together because her diet isn't great. But she has this green juice. She has.
Well, there was that, they did that research, didn't they? I think in Japan, I'm happy to be wrong on that, but they did research where you can basically abuse your body in whichever way you choose, as long as you have enough dark green leafy
vegetables. Yeah.
It pretty much eradicates and levels out any sort of, I'm not advocating people not take care of themselves, but apparently
how important the chlorophyll that comes from those leafy greens, how important that is for your body. You're right. It's like, when I had the juice bar, I used to call it liquid gold, because that's what it was like. Spirulina, anything that's dark and green is so good for you. So we began juicing, and unfortunately we lost my dad. It was a tough time. But something great came out of that. And that was both me and my mum took much care of our health. And I used to, when I went in for my treatment, that's what I wanted to say on the back of you talking about Mandy and her husband healing himself. I used to listen to a meditation. There's a particular meditation you can find online. If anybody is having chemotherapy and wants to find out about this, do please DM us, because I would happily share this meditation. But it's a meditation where it focuses on the treatment going directly to the cancer cells and killing the cancer cells off, but keeping all of the other cells untouched and healthy. Because part of the thing that the unfortunate thing with chemotherapy is it attacks all of the cells, right?
Yeah.
So it kills the good cells and the bad cells. So that's why it takes a while for you to build your immunity back up afterwards. But I genuinely believe that this meditation that I did every time I went in for my treatment played a part in my wellness. I was adamant I was not going to lose my hair through chemotherapy. Adamant. And I didn't. I ran a half marathon halfway through having my chemotherapy. And I'm not saying everybody can do this. It's
all case by case.
All cases are different. For me, it was so important to stay positive. I was never going to become a victim. I was going to choose a path of self-growth. What can I get out of this awful diagnosis? How can I come out of this a stronger, better, kinder person?
I love that.
And that was my focus all through my treatment. I spent time with friends. In fact, it was quite sweet because I was living back at home in Birmingham at the time, but traveling into London for my treatment. And I'd bring a different friend with me for treatment each time so that I could catch up with them. And half of it was meditation, half of it was catching up.
And also just allowing them to be there with you. And part of it is that old saying, the most generous thing we can do sometimes is allow other people to be generous. So actually giving them an opportunity to feel that they are supporting you can be that's a really important thing.
So yeah, that was a catalyst for, again, me tuning into my spiritual side. And then I suppose the next bit was when I met you. That was when really us coming together and seeing the work you were doing, and me knowing that there was never really I have always been a bit of a skeptic. A healthy skepticism, I think, is healthy, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's taken me a while to actually realize I can do this work. And I've been training now at the College of Psychic Studies and through courses at the Wellness Foundry for 4 years. So I'm very much in this world, but it's taken me time to actually believe I can do this and believe this is something that's happening to me.
Yeah, because I was thinking it's a bit like if I was saying, I think I'm going to get into dance and going to dance classes and the kind of comparison of that and feeling very self-aware of, am I going to be as good as Jamie? And I can't tap as well as he can, and he's got this kind of history. But actually, it's got nothing to do with that. It's just a kind of purely, you kind of got it or you don't really in that respect.
Yeah.
But I have understood that sometimes your trepidation is, this is Fingal's thing.
Yes.
But actually that has definitely come down as part of your growth and as part of mine.
Yeah. So now to kind of explain a little bit now what I do. So over the past few years, I have built up my confidence. I've got better at that. And it's interesting when you talk, people always go, what, you've had to train to be a psychic? And that's fascinating, isn't it? Because yes, there's a natural ability, but what you have to learn is how to deliver messages with compassion. If you just didn't know, if you weren't trained on how to hold space, how to deliver these messages, we could be doing more damage than good.
Absolutely.
So
in the example we've looked at today. Yeah.
So I think the training is an important part, and I think there are people that are naturally gifted and done it and had the training, and perhaps that's the difference, and that's the difference with us and the difference with all of our team at the Wellness Foundry is they are naturally gifted, but they have trained at this as well.
They've done years.
So I've done my training. I'm now the resident practitioner for past life regressions at the Wellness Foundry, which I absolutely love. And I offer past life regressions in the normal format, like a 75-minute to 90-minute session where people are regressed through a style of semi-hypnotic state / meditation. And then I ask questions and they bring through this past life, and we dig to find out if there are any similarities between that life and this life, and if we can shine a light on anything that might bring some answers or clarity to today. And then we've just launched past life readings as well. So for those people that can't perhaps relax and meditate or be quiet and still and access this past life themselves, I can tune in psychically and bring a past life through for them, which is amazing. And it's a lot of fun for me. Love that.
I'm sure we'll delve deep into some case studies and some of the most fascinating aspects of that, perhaps at a different time as well. So what would, just to kind of, I suppose, wrap it up in a particular way, what would be some of your takeaways, or what was particularly pivotal or helpful within your spiritual journey that you would share with others?
I would say it's about taking time to unplug from the outside world. I talk about it in my yoga classes a lot. We are in a world of constant stimulation, technology, people, work, whatever it is, we are stimulated, television, film, we're stimulated at every turn.
Yeah.
Get into your practice, whether it's 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, where you are still, whatever. And this practice could be different. Completely. This could just be, it doesn't actually matter what the practice is, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's you lifting some weights, whatever it is that resonates with you, where you are connected to you, connected to your mind, your body, and you are being as present as possible. I think taking that time to do that is invaluable.
Yeah, I would really, really second that. There's that saying, isn't it? You can only see the bottom of the pool if the water's still. And it is about stilling that mind. And one of the things that we did in our Buddhist practice is boredom, actually, cultivating boredom at times, and sitting there with a cup of tea and not reaching for your phone, not reaching for your computer, not reaching for the TV, but actually just allowing that thing to settle in. And it's what we were speaking about right at the beginning, of just channeling that thing in, just being fully, fully present. And it is that thing where when I'm in the shower or when I'm just sitting quietly for 5 minutes, that's when the revelations come. That's when the real insights come. So no, I'd really, really second that. I think that's invaluable. It is about finding stillness, cultivating stillness. So many times people say to me, how do I develop my intuition? Or how do I develop my connection with my guides? Or where do I start? And it is just within that. It's impossible to hear the messages if you're standing in a wind tunnel, so to speak. You've got to find that peace. So talk a little bit about how we met.
Oh, interesting. We were messaging on a dating app for a little while, backwards and forwards, I think. I was going through my treatment, or I was coming to the end of my treatment. And I'd actually, the day I met you, been given the all clear from the cancer. And I was on the bus coming back, and it's funny, I hop on Grindr after I've been given the all clear from cancer, as you do.
Way to celebrate. Let your hair down.
Oh, I know, it's funny. But, we always joked, didn't we? We should have asked Grindr to sponsor our wedding. An actual true success story of Grindr.
I would have put the ass in class.
So I was on the bus coming home from the hospital, feeling obviously very happy, elated that the news I'd just been given. I was staying with a friend of mine in Herne Hill at the time, and I think we were messaging. And it just so happened we were in the same area at the same time. So I think I like hopped off the bus and we were like, let's meet in the Half Moon pub in Herne Hill. And you were close by as well. So it was so random, wasn't it? I mean, I am quite spontaneous anyway, but it was what just happened. And then to come into this was just quite, now I look back, I think, what were you doing? Why didn't you just go home and rest? But no, I jumped on a date. So we got to the pub, sat there. I think you were a bit late.
As
normal. But I remember you strolling in. I was sat in the corner and I saw as you come in, knew instantly it was you. And you were holding a glass bottle of water with a big crystal inside it.
Because my thinking on that, I don't know if I told you, but my thinking on that is I'm going to take this on this date as a segue and as a gentle introduction to my weird and wonderful world.
Right.
So it will be the subtle hint.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, oh, here we go. Because I knew we would be aligned. But it wasn't a here we go, like, oh, who's it? It was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be good. I just knew. And I've told you since, your story is slightly different. But I knew from the minute you walked in the door, you were the one. I just knew. And then you sat down and was just, I mean, it was just hilarious. I feel like we just laughed the whole night.
We did.
You were so, I like funny because I'm the show hands one, but your hands were going, your legs were going, you were high kicking in the chair. I was thinking either this guy cannot sit still or I'm just pretty cool and he's really excited.
There's probably a mix of the two, really. When I get nervous, particularly on dates, I think I go on the, yes, I get more and more and more animated.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised I didn't do a tap dance.
So that's how we met. And then we were pretty much inseparable, weren't we, for 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Because I remember leaving that said bottle at yours and you filling it up with water and leaving it on the doorstep. And the next morning I thought, oh, okay, he's got charm. He's nice. So yeah, and it is funny. It's funny from that kind of moment when we were talking before, and that segue of, oh, I'm a yoga teacher. Oh, are you a yoga teacher? Oh, I run a company called the Wellness Foundry. Oh, what does that do? And I say, oh, I'm a tarot and psychic. And you go, oh, that's so funny. I've been seeing psychics since I was 16. And I thought, wow, even to the point where my driving instructor is really, really into mediums and psychics as well. It's funny. I just seem so...
The laws of attraction.
Yeah, laws of attraction. Exactly that.
It works.
It's really, it's quite amazing. So again, this goes to what we were speaking before about coming out of the spiritual closet, as I was talking about on the last episode. It's really, it will always surprise you.
Yeah. Well, I'd manifested you anyway. Like, you like to tell, do you want to tell this story?
No, you tell it. It'd be quite good to hear it from your...
Finn always likes to tell this, but I had manifested Finn because while I was ill back at my mum's, part of the thing I'd done was put together a vision board of what I wanted, and there was various things on there of holidays and finances and all sorts of things. But the one thing was the man that I wanted to meet, and I had a picture of a man that I wanted him to look like and a list of his qualities. Quite a long list, and he pretty much ticked all those boxes. So
do you want to say the one that I didn't tick?
Oh, well,
hasn't happened yet.
I wanted somebody that had 2 houses, one in the UK and one in more sunnier climates, because I am pretty much a sun worshipper. So it's,
and he also forgot to put tidy on his list of manifestations.
I wish I'd added tidy to
but if
list.
You had, I wouldn't have been able to come in.
That's true.
That's true. Tidiness is not my highest virtue.
So without a shadow of a doubt, I was doing a lot of manifesting at that point, and I did manifest you.
Apparently, I don't know if I made this up. Your mum saw the list as well, and then when she met me, she was slightly spooked.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's been stars aligned ever since.
Yes, it has. It's been good.
Well, thank you for sharing your story so honestly and kind of vulnerability. You know that word.
Sorry, what?
It's a very difficult word to say. But honestly, thank you. It's as you said last time, there's bits in that are new to me. So it's it's fascinating. So we hope you've enjoyed it listening from wherever you are. Be sure to tune in next time. And sending you lots of love and blessings.
Thanks. And that's the end of this week's episode. We'd love to hear what you think or suggestions of what we could cover in future. Either leave us a comment if the platform you're listening on allows it, or drop us an email, hello@wellnessfoundry.co.uk. Alternatively, DM us on Instagram. Be sure to hit subscribe or follow to stay up to date with the latest releases. But until next time, love and blessings.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Spirit Level, brought to you by the Wellness Foundry, the home of spiritual wellness. For more information and bookings, visit the website wellnessfoundry.co.uk or find us on Instagram @wellnessfoundry. Don't forget, as a thank you for listening, receive 5% off your first booking by using code PODCAST5 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.